This conference will now be
Let's
recorded.
wave, everybody. Okay, so we're now being recorded. Yes. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so I just want to touch upon what Leticia had said, and it's a very important point, right? Your grandchildren are not Jewish, and there is no obligation for a non-Jew to become Jewish, right? And Jews and non-Jews have their place in the world to come. Jews have the Torah and the 613 mitzvot, and non-Jews have what's called the Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach, the 7 Noahide mitzvot, and whatever works for them really makes the most sense. If they're inspired by you, beautiful. If they want to live their life as good, honest, hardworking non-Jews, right? And actually, a real beauty of Judaism is that we don't say, believe in Jesus or you're going to burn in hell, or right, become Christian or eternal damnation, or become Muslim, right? Except their understanding of God, who they call Allah, right? Or else, you're a lower. No, right? If we're believing, and we are believing in a God, this is a God of the universe. This is a God of all humanity. And every human being has the opportunity to connect to God. The Jews have a mission, and the mission is to teach the world and to spread the world. And that's why the other monotheistic religions, Islam and Christianity, have all spawned from Judaism. And the reason why there's a lot of this anti-Semitism coming from Christianity and from Islam, and it's been at different times in history, some more than others, because they view themselves as the replacement, as Judaism 2.0, right? So why would anybody still keep a floppy disk when you can have an iPhone, right? So therefore, the fact that the Jews have so stubbornly held on to our religion is a source of discomfort for them. Maybe we don't have 2.0 if everyone hasn't upgraded. And that is why there's been so much of this animosity trained towards us. But our mission is to teach the world the truth about this monotheistic God. And that's why the other monotheistic religions have spawned from Judaism. And when we speak about a chosen people, which we'll touch upon, it's not that we're better, it's not that we have more privileges, almost on the contrary, right? We're chosen to teach the world what it often doesn't want to hear, and to carry the results, sometimes the wounds of teaching the world a certain morality that they didn't want to hear. So that's who we are, and that's why we're here. And those who say, but I want to accept that Judaism on me, I want to accept that mission on me. So the Torah says, I believe 13 times, maybe it's 7 times, V'ahavtem et hager, love that convert, respect that convert, embrace that convert, recognize what they left behind to come and join, and make sure that they feel that embrace. And actually, one of the questions at the very end of your process, when you are going into that mikvah, immersing yourself in the mikvah, one of the questions that'll be asked is, are you crazy? Don't you know the Jews have been persecuted and slaughtered and pursued and a whole bunch of other beautiful, gory terms? Right? Are you crazy? right? And the correct answer is, but nevertheless, we want to be part of this incredible people. And that is the voyage, that the journey that we are all starting together. And I look forward to it being a very, very meaningful journey. A little bit of bookkeeping, and that is that some of you I've directed to the RCC, some of you I've directed to Rabbi Ru. Whatever the case is, if you haven't yet reached out to whichever agency, right? Let me just explain the structure. Some of you thinking, wait, Rabbi Ru, RCC? I thought you, Rabbi Siner. So I don't do conversions. There are certain Batei Din. A Beit Din is a Jewish court that they do the conversions. And the two that I work with most are the RCC, the Rabbinical Council of California, and Rabbi David Ru. And after getting to know someone, I will usually direct them to one of those two, the one that I think will be the best fit. They are the ones that actually do the conversion, and you will be sending an application to them, and there's a fee that goes to them for the process, and then you'll be meeting with them periodically, every 2, 3, 4 months, right? And at the end of the process, then they will schedule the final meeting, the final test, we'll call it, and then schedule the mikvah, and they will give you the document with the document which says the conversion has taken place. Okay, and so who needs senior? How do I fit in? Right. So I will be, if you'd like me to be, I will be what's called a sponsoring rabbi, and I will work with you, and I will do the teaching and the guidance and questions that you have, and whenever, and they are in constant touch with me, right? Are they attending? Are they serious? Is this happening, or is this not really happening? So that is the structure. And they each, usually it's about a year and a half process. Maybe a year, usually about a year and a half. The clock for them starts once you have reached out to them and given the application and began the process. So if you go to them and say, I've been studying for 5 years, I'm ready for the final exam, they say, great, let's start the process now. So you want to make sure that you are starting the process. That's when the clock begins, and that way it will not delay situation. Okay, right? Those of you who are looking to build families at this point in your life, so there's more of a pressure to get things moving, right? So that's, of course, each of your decisions. But I just want to let you know, so that you shouldn't say, "Oh, Rabbi, why didn't you tell me? I only applied after 6 months, and they told me I have another year and a half." Right? What happened to the past 6 months? So I'm letting you know, and it's recorded. So right, from when you reach out and send your application, that is when the process begins. Okay. We are going to be covering what's called hashkafa. Hashkafa means outlook, Jewish understanding. We're going to be covering tefillah, prayer. We're going to be covering many different areas of halacha. We'll be dealing mostly with kashrut, Shabbat. Family purity is something that those who are married or in a relationship, that's towards the end. And I teach the men, and my wife Natalie, my wonderful, beautiful wife Natalie, teaches the women that. Okay, so it's kashrut, Shabbat, it's brachot, right? It's the blessings that we make. These are the different main areas that we will be covering. And as part of an Orthodox conversion, we will be getting into some of the details, some of the minutiae of the halachot, of the laws. But the most important thing to always remember and always realize is that all of these mitzvot are meant to help give us the God awareness. Because that is really what this is all about, to be living with a God awareness. You see above the Amron Kodesh there, it says in Hebrew, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. Those are the letters that are rising above the ark over there. I've placed Hashem before me constantly. And that is what all the mitzvot are meant to do, to connect us to God by giving us this constant. So, oh no, is it kosher, kosher? So we're walking into a grocery store and we're checking to see if there's a kosher certificate, kosher emblem on whatever product it is. What's happening is, or what's meant to be happening is, I'm living in God's world. It's not a free-for-all. There are certain parameters. Take it a step further. The first sin came from eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the sin there was not recognizing that they were in God's world, in God's garden, and he sets the rules. As I always say, if I invite you to my house, you come, right? You're invited to the house, but you don't start opening up the drawers. There are certain boundaries that when you're in someone else's house, there are boundaries. And the boundary was set for Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden that it's all yours for you, but not this tree. So the question is always asked, well, if God didn't want them to eat it, why did he put it into the garden? You don't want them to eat? Why'd you put it into the garden? What do you want to say? Yes, test, but I want to take it a step further. Yes, Josh, yes, it's a test. But more than a test, it's to have the free will and to use that free will to have the awareness that I'm in God's garden. And therefore, there are certain parameters, things that I can take and things that I can't take. And we go to a grocery store, we recognize that we're in God's garden, we're in God's world. And there are things that we do and things that we don't. And all the mitzvot revolve around this idea of I am living in God's world. And to have that focus, that Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid, I've placed God before me constantly. And there was a fellow who was part of this conversion process a number of cycles ago, and an interesting fellow. He was involved in finance, and he had his own little business. And he came to me one night, and he said, "Rabbi Sina, I don't know what I'm doing here." I said, "What do you mean? What happened? Talk to me. What's going on?" He said, "I'm learning all of this, minutia about this halacha, that halacha." And then I called in one of the workers who wasn't doing a good job, and I tore the guy to pieces. So what good is all this halacha, is all this Jewish law, if that's how I treat a person? And I said to him, you're 100% right. You're really missing the point over here. And all of the mitzvot and all of the carefulness is meant to make us focus and realize we're in God's world. And that needs to translate that when you call in a worker who is not doing a good job, you recognize this is a child of God who's sitting in front of me. This is a person who has a spirit of God, the neshama, the soul of God in him or in her. I might have to fire this person. If they're not doing the right job, I can't keep them forever. But how do I do it? How do I treat them? Do I rub their nose in the ground, or do I try to lift them up as much as I can that they can go on from here? I said to him, you're right, you're missing the point. If you're focusing on every detail of the mitzvah, which we need to, but that is meant to bring us to the point that we recognize that we're in God's world and we're surrounded by God's creations, whether it's human beings, whether it's animals and we treat them kindly, whether it's there's a story that a person is walking along with Rabbi Cook, one of the great rabbis of Israel, and as he's walking, he grabbed a leaf and was absentmindedly tearing it up as he's talking. Absentmindedly we do that, we tear things apart. And the rabbi said to him, "What are you doing?" "What do you mean?" Said, "What are you doing to that leaf?" He said, "Oh, He said that was a creation of God. And that had life coursing through it. We don't just wantonly take and destroy that. No, we're meant to use this world. We're learning in Derech Hashem, right? How this world, just so you know, there are a number of classes that mostly being Zoomed that you're more than welcome to join. At 6:45 on Mondays, we do what's called Derech Hashem, which is the way of God in the world, which deals with the fundamentals of Judaism. Oh, five, thank you. It was 6:45. Oh, battery's running low. Could you see if the cord's over there? Thank you. I have an outlet. I just need the plug for the computer. It's not there. Okay. Okay. No, this isn't my computer. This is on Lisa's computer here. Okay. Maybe we'll make a switch over here. 1 second. Yeah, so 5:45 we do what's called Derech Hashem on Monday, which gives us the fundamentals of Judaism. Tuesday 9 o'clock we go through the Parsha. We take the Torah reading of that week, and we go through that. And we don't go through, but we take certain ideas and we work on that. This is going to start to make a lot of noise in a second. Tuesday 9 a.m. Thursdays at okay, good. You see me now in. Good. Thursday lunch and learn. Sorry, everybody. That's such an annoying sound, isn't it? Good. Thursday is lunch and learn. Good. And yeah, I think those are the ones to focus on. And Tuesday night is a conversion class that you know that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's where the focus needs to be. So we will be dealing with lots of these different details of the halacha, but don't lose the forest getting stuck amongst all the trees. It's meant to give us this God awareness. And if someone asked me, Rabbi, what is a mitzvah? Right? So a mitzvah is a good deed. No, a mitzvah is not a good deed. It might be a good deed. That's not the definition. A mitzvah actually is a commandment. But what is a mitzvah? A mitzvah is a physical act done by a physical person in the physical world that allows us to touch that which is beyond the physical, to touch the eternal, to touch the godly, to touch the spiritual. That's what every mitzvah is, and we're meant to feel that. We're meant to feel that we're doing a mitzvah, and there's a danger that I have, and it will become a danger for you also. Because when it's new and fresh, it's great. But when it becomes rote, that is the challenge, to make sure that you are finding within yourself that freshness, that connection, that energy, to not allow it to become just what we do. You know, there's a sad joke that when do you know a convert has really made it? When they start talking during davening. That's a sad joke, right? But it means that they've settled in so much that, right? And we don't want that to happen. We want to stay energized. Sorry, we want to stay involved in talking and engaged. Okay, what has helped you stay engaged? I'm not always so successful at it. Everyone has their ups and their downs. And when it comes to davening, there are times that I will go a lot slower than everyone else, and I'll make it up afterwards. And you have to see what works for you, and and you have to also shake it up sometimes and not allow it to become just this rote. Yeah. Okay. Does everybody have a siddur? There's some other, Josh, you get a hand out over there. Whoever, good. Everyone has. Elizabeth needs one. We need one or two more over there. Okay. We're going to start on page 178 with Maimonides' 13 principles of faith. Page 178. That's actually in the Hebrew. I'm going to go right to the English. Page 179. Everyone have that? The 13 principles of faith. Okay? Maimonides was one of the greatest Jewish thinkers, philosophers, lived in the 11th century, and he wrote extensively. There's a sefer he wrote called Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide to the Perplexed, where he deals with many of the fundamental questions, challenges, understandings of Judaism. He codified Jewish law. Okay, and we will go through the Torah and the prophets and the Talmud, how all of that. But before the Rambam, basically you had the Talmud, which will have different topics. And so if you learn this Talmud, that will cover marriages, that will cover divorce, that will cover Shabbat, that will cover holidays, Pesach. Oh, also, when I left out, and we will break whatever we're focusing on. When a holiday rolls around, we will break and focus on that holiday. Okay? Now, an excellent set of books that everybody should get at some point is how's it in English? What is it called? Sefer Toda'ah, the book of our heritage. Okay? Yes, the book of our heritage. Whichever program you're on, they're going to want you to have that set. Okay? And what it does is it goes through. It's by Eliyahu Kitov, Kitov, the book of our heritage, and it's a beautiful, wonderful work that goes through every Jewish month and tells all the major holidays or the minor holidays, all the significant days of that month. If it's a holiday that has laws, it'll explain the laws. It'll tell about the midrashim, the stories that led up to it, the history that leads up to it. It will give you insights. It is a treasure trove of Jewish knowledge, awareness. It is a treasure trove. Okay? So we will also pause whatever we're studying, whatever we're focusing on, as a holiday rolls around, and we will focus on that holiday. The Rambam was the first one to codify Jewish law. And because the Talmud, the main place it speaks about marriage is in the Tractate of Marriage, but there's also some aspects that are mentioned in different tractates. And he codified it all, and the code of Jewish law that we have today, which is called the Shulchan Aruch, which is the code of Jewish law, draws from that Rambam and also has it in a very codified manner. And the Rambam presented 13 principles of faith. So let us start to go through these 13 principles of faith. Number one, Ani Ma'amin, I believe with complete faith that the Creator, blessed is His name, creates and guides all creatures, and that He alone made, makes, and will make everything. If you want to know where Orthodox Judaism, let me rephrase that. If you want to know where conservative and Reform Judaism have moved away from orthodoxy and realize that they're never, going back 200 years, there was not orthodoxy, conservative, and Reform. There was Judaism. And there were those who were observant and those who were not observant. Actually, that's what we still have today in the in the Sephardic communities. There aren't Orthodox Sephardic shuls and conservative Sephardic shuls and Reform. There are Batei Knesiot. There are synagogues. And people of all levels of observance come and participate. There never was this conservative or this Reform. There was Judaism. Torah, Judaism. And there were those who were stringently observant, those who were loosely observant, and those who were non-observant. But they didn't turn it into, this is Judaism. They understood. We're not observant. Okay. But you don't take non-observance and say, that's Judaism. And the place where they veered off tremendously, besides halachic observance, Torah observance, is where it comes to how involved is God in the world. And the Rambam states unequivocally, I believe with a complete faith that the Creator, blessed is He, blessed His name, creates, God is a creator, and guides all creatures. In Hebrew, it's manhig, right? A nahag in modern Hebrew is a driver. He orchestrates. He guides. We make the choices. And we're responsible for the choices that we make. But He is the one who guides. The way I like to put it, He deals the cards. We have to play the hand. And we take full responsibility for the way we play the hand. But things do not just happen in life. There is not this coincidence. There is what we call hashgacha pratit. There is this divine providence. When something happens around you, it's for a reason. Might be for you to help. Might be for you to walk away. Might be for you to learn from it. That's your call. But it's sent there for a reason. There's a reason why the things that happen, happen. We often don't understand it. And we ask questions. And we're in good company. Moses also asked, why, God? Why do the righteous suffer? Why do the evil prosper? Moses believed in God. If anyone believed in God, Moses believed in God. And he asked the question. And it's okay to ask the question. Rabbi Sachs of blessed memory says very beautifully, we don't really want to know the answer as to why the bad things happen to good people. Because if we knew the answer, what we do? Oh, okay, that's why. We'd sit back. But because we don't know the answer, what do? We get up and we help and we do whatever we can to help. But this is the number one fundamental concept. God, A, is the creator, and B, He is involved. And we go through that with our Shabbat and our holidays. And this is an important concept. Judaism is not sitting on a mountaintop and meditating and communing. We do our beliefs. The Torah, God recognizes we're physical beings, and therefore we need to do our beliefs. How do we do our belief of God as a creator? Shabbat. How does that work? How are we doing our belief in God as a creator? Well, God created 6 days and then He rested on the seventh day. But it doesn't make sense to say God rested. Who needs to rest? When a person gets tired, weary, we need to rest. God is God. He didn't need to rest. So what did God do, or what did God stop doing on the seventh day? Stopped creating. And therefore, Sabbath observance means we stop creating. And that explains why I live a mile from the shul. I walk 4 miles on every Shabbat. Is that resting? That's not a problem. But to hit a light switch, that I can't do. What's happening? Does that make sense? The day of rest. You walk 4 miles, but you can't touch a light switch. But the idea is creating. Creating is using my mastery, my knowledge, my strength to alter, to change this world. God was creating, God was altering, changing the world, and then he stopped. So too, I'm not altering, I'm not changing the world when I walk 4 miles. I am using my technical mastery to alter and change the world, to create, when I hit a light switch. Someone said to me, well, Rabbi, once we have Siri, so I don't hit the switch. I say, Alexa, turn on the lights. Is that okay? And I said clearly, that's an even greater degree of mastery over this world. And we don't show our mastery. That's why writing is creative. We don't write on the Sabbath. I can lift a sofa up and down 100 times. That's not breaking Shabbat. But writing, that is breaking Shabbat. Because that's not changing the world. That's not altering. That's not a creative act. This is a creative act. So we do our belief in God as a creator when we observe the Sabbath and don't create. Driving on the Sabbath, that is clearly our mastery over the world. How else am I going 65 miles an hour? When Usain Bolt, the fastest man alive, can only go about how fast at its peak? 20 something, probably 22, 23. So how do I know Usain Bolt over here, a little bit past my prime when it comes to athletics? How am I going 80 miles an hour? That's my mastery over this world. We don't do that. Okay? So Judaism, we do our beliefs. We do our belief in God as a creator by Shabbat. We do our belief of God's involvement in the world by our holidays. Because the holidays are all not just commemorating, but re-experiencing events where God came down, so to speak, and involved himself very, very intimately in the world, in the progress and the destiny of the Jewish people. So these two concepts of principle one are foundational beliefs in Judaism. God creates, but he didn't create and then say, all right, guys, have fun. I'm leaving it to nature now. Good luck. He stays involved. In the Hebrew, it's so beautiful. V'hu levado, he alone, asa, did, oseh, does, v'yaseh, and will do, kol hamaasim. All that which happens, God is involved. Everything. Everything. And like I said, that is where the other branches have broken off from Judaism, from Orthodoxy. And that really speaks to a greater aspect. We understand that we can't understand everything. This we discussed in our Tuesday morning class. It comes up often. Right? If I'm only going to do that which makes sense to me, I'm not serving God. Who am I serving? Me. My understanding. And basically I'm saying God can't be any smarter than me. So if it doesn't make sense to me, then it doesn't make sense. All my classes, when someone says, it doesn't make sense, I say the better way to put that is, I don't understand. I don't understand. It's not, it doesn't make sense. It's, I don't understand. And if we are believing in a God that has created the universe and created every cell in our body, that with all of our scientific and medical advances, we still can't figure out what many of the things in the cell are doing, then we recognize that I can't limit God to my 4 square inches of gray matter over here. And it's not that it doesn't make sense to me, then it doesn't make sense. And that's why we have a whole category of mitzvot called the chok. A chok is a mitzvah that the reason wasn't given to us. And similar to what we discussed before, Josh, about the tree in the Garden of Eden. Well, why, if God's not going to tell us why, either tell us why or don't give us that don't give us that mitzvah. Why give us mitzvot that the reason is not given? So we realize that we are limited and we're dealing with a God. And we're not only doing the things that make sense to us. And in this number 1, there are many things in life that we cry about, that we mourn about, that we scratch our heads. Why? And we have to have that humility to recognize, I'm not going to understand God. I have enough problems understanding myself. I'm not going to fathom God and all that which God does. Okay? This is number 1, and this is just so foundational, so fundamental to true Jewish thought. Okay? Hashkafa, outlook, understanding. There's a beautiful, beautiful song, tune that to this. And years ago, Natalie, my wife, came home and found me sitting on the floor with my guitar, playing that song and singing this over and over and over. And she gave me a look, and I said, soon. And I kept playing. And then she said, what happened? And I was trying to be mechazek, trying to strengthen myself. That a big shock and disappointment had come my way. And I was trying to get myself to the point that I was fully aligned that God did this. And there's a reason. And God is this loving parent who loves me more than my parents of blessed memory, who loved me, surprisingly enough, who really did love me. He loves me even more than they did. Oops. Just 1 second. Sorry. Good. Did you guys set that? Was that a hint? No. So this God that loves me, and there's no way that my parents would do anything to my detriment. But there are many things that my parents did when I was young, like forcing me to take medicine or get shots. And I thought, like, why are they doing this to me? But of course they were doing it out of love. And I was sitting there singing this over and over and over, getting myself to the point that this came from God with love because it's the best thing in the world for me. Maybe I'll see quickly that it's the best thing in the world. Maybe I'll see years later. Maybe I'll see when I leave this world. I'll understand how, looking back, that was the best thing for me. But it's the best thing for me. And in that situation, very quickly we saw how it was a blessing. But that's not always the case. But that is the number one, and that is, like I said, so foundational. Let's do a few more. Ani Ma'amin, number two, I believe with complete faith that the Creator, blessed is His name, is unique. And there is no uniqueness like His in any way. Right? And again, in English, in the Hebrew, it's better. Hu Yachid. He is one. There's no one that's three and three that's one. There's very advanced mathematics. There is one that is one. Okay? And Yachid. And there is no oneness like Him. There is no, there's no composite. It's just God is this oneness. V'hu levado Elokeinu haya hoveh v'yiyeh. He alone is Elokeinu. We'll come to that name in a moment. He was, is, and will be. Elokeinu, there are different names for God. Why does God have so many different names? What would you say, my friends? Why does God have so many different, why do we have so many different names for God?
Different attributes.
Different attributes, Leticia. Okay? I'm Rabbi to some. I'm daddy to others. I'm a brother to some. I'm Eugene to my old friends. I have many different names because I have many different relationships with different people. I'm dad, I'm grandpa, I was son for a while. My parents are no longer with us, right? But I've had many names because of many different relationships and connections. And each name of God depicts a different way through which He connects to the world. Elohim is the all-powerful. And that is coming back to what we started with number one. All that goes on in the world is coming about through Him. Haya hoveh v'yihiyeh. He was, He is, and He will be. But it doesn't mean He was, He is, and He will be. What it means is He is, was, is, and will be. Meaning, we are bound by time. We are locked into time. So for us, there was, there is, and there will be. But God is Oseh Bereshit. He created time. And it's fascinating that science recognizes that only once there's matter is there time. That God existed before matter and will exist beyond matter and is after and exists beyond matter. So God is not bound by time. See, He is, was, is, and will be. And a beautiful mashal, parable, a beautiful way to try to understand this is, let's say I have a tablecloth over here. Let's say this would be a map of my life. Here I am as an infant, toddler, teenager, young man, right? At the end of the table is when I am an old man leaving this world. There's a cloth over this table, and there's a hole in it. And slowly that cloth just keeps moving. And all of a sudden my infanthood is covered. That's the past. And now it's my 8-year-old. And now we move further. And that's the present. The present is where that hole is, and that's where we are. And we have memories of the past, which is covered. and we have dreams and thoughts and aspirations for the future, but who knows? That is our perspective. And then there's God's perspective. What's God's perspective? What's under the tablecloth? And that thing looks the tablecloth doesn't obscure anything. So was, is, and will be. That is our understanding of God. Yachid. There's just one. There are no components. There's no, it's interesting. I was listening to Tovia Singer, who's great, right? And he says, and he says so clearly. He said, Judaism says that you are created in the image of God. Lift yourself up. Whoever you are, whatever, it doesn't matter what your appearance is. You are created in the image of God. The Christianity created God in the image of man. Created God in the image of man. He said, how come you never see a depiction of Jesus as a fat guy who's bald? What do they have against bald guys? What's wrong with being bald? Right? Jesus got this long mane. He's built like like LeBron. Oh, perfect, right? And he's always white. Why should he always be white? Why can't he be dark-skinned, fat, bald? Right? Because they made God in the image of man. But man is in the image of God. Whether we are dark-skinned, light-skinned, haired or non-haired, whether we are tall or short, skinny or heavy, that's irrelevant. That's not what life is about. Whoever you are created in the image of God and become godly. Lift yourself up. Number 3, with this will end. Are you guys okay with babysitters?
That's what I'm texting. I'm not being rude.
No, don't be rude. Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah.
So if you see me on my phone, it's
No, I understand. Yeah, those who have kids at home, I understand. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shalema. Number 3, and then with this will end. I believe with a complete faith. Shabori baruch shemo, that the Creator, blessed is His name, eino guf. There is no physicality. V'lo yasiguhu masige haguf, and that which affects those of us who have physicality does not affect God. That's what we said before by Shabbat. It can't be God rested on the 7th day because He doesn't get tired, but He stopped creating. All of these guf, physical aspects, are not ein lo shum dinyan klal. There is no comparison whatsoever to Him, right? Which is why, again, right, the whole Jesus thing is basically idolatry to Judaism, right? You're turning God into a human being, right? God does not have any physicality, and that was the lust for idolatry in that, because people want to have something tangible, right? And throughout the Torah, we have many verses, and there were some, even scholars, who took those verses literally and thought there was some physicality to God. And the Rambam, Maimonides, is vehement against that. And every single case of that is what we call anthropomorphism, which means attributing human qualities or qualities to something or someone that doesn't have those qualities in order for us to understand it. Right? So God's arm means His strength. God's eyes means His awareness. God's Anger is his displeasure. God remembering, God doesn't forget. God's remembering is shifting from one thing to another. Because if I just remembered I need to. I'm kidding. What just happened? I just shifted from giving a class to dealing with that. When I remember, I shift gears. So God remembered Noah on the ark. It means God was now going to shift from flood the world to rebuild the world. God remembered the children of Israel in Egypt. It meant God was going to shift from the midah, the attribute, dealing with them with the enslavement, switching to Exodus mode. So every time that we have such an expression in the Torah, it is not, heaven forbid, to be taken literally, but it is to give us, to present it in a way that we can hear, we can understand, and we can relate to it. Okay. It's late. We'll call, and I was a student. I taught for many years, also a student for many years, so I don't like to go late. So I'm sorry we went a bit late. We got off to a later start and had a lot of introductions today, but I did want to at least sink our teeth a little bit into these 13 principles. Okay, good. Team.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right, everybody. Good. Have a good night, everybody.
Rabbi.
you.
Good night. Good seeing you guys. Where are you looking for a place? How are you approaching this?
We've been on the Zillow, the Realtor.com, just all the online sites.
People in the community have
People in
been
the
looking
community,
out.
yeah.
Okay, so you're looking to rent a house, looking to rent
A house specifically.
a house. Can I hurry? You have a beautiful family. So
Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of the
yeah,
apartments won't allow our size family in there, like a 3 bedroom house.
correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good night, good night, good night. Okay. Hulavado asa useviyase. He alone did, does, and will do. We'll see what he has planned.
That's right. We're
That's all we
excited.
can do.
We're not
Make our
worried.
effort and then see what he has planned.
Right.
Very good. Okay. Good night, guys. I'll just go back over there. That's fine. Good. Okay. Good night. Good night.
Right.
Good night, Rose.